fashion towards healing in our community, showcasing styles of casual wear and elegant wear with a flair. 2 to 4 Washington Street, Dorchester 02121. For more information, you can call the Recovery CAF at 617-465-1299 or Sister Fatima at 617-905-7086. And of course, I have to announce my fundraiser, Mahi. It's our 5th year. Marcus Anthony Hall Educational Institute is having their 5th fundraiser. We have been awarded our 501c3. And so if you want to donate or go to our website, www.mahei.org, or you can send a donation to Mahi at 321 Blue Hill Ave in Dorchester 02121. It's October the 16th at 5:30 at the Bruce Boland Building on the 2nd floor, and it's going to be very, very nice. It's going to be different, and I'm hoping and praying that we have a packed house, because we have some different things that we're going to be doing this year, and I'm so excited. So I have with me Renee Welch, who is, are you the chair of the Franklin Park Defenders?
No, just one of the members.
Okay.
A plaintiff and one of the members of the Franklin Park Defenders.
Right. So this is an election year. Unfortunately, it seems like our current mayor does not have opponent any longer. And so we're stuck, kind of, me, myself personally, and I'm going to say this, I don't think she should be able to walk in there, She needs a challenger.
I agree.
But unfortunately, these rules and regs that they make, I always thought, if 2 people were in a race and 3 or 4 people were in the race and 1 person backed out, we'll go to the next person in line, And I have to talk to Josh, because I really would like to know why he dropped out. You were second, No, so she gets no challenge,
Mm-hmm.
So, but my good friend, Mr. Louis Alisa, another Franklin Park defender. I joined to be the Franklin Park defender too, because I wanted to defend Franklin Park, I ain't happy with White Stadium. Don't make no sense to me. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good to see you this morning. Yep, put them on. You can put your headphones on so you can hear. So when people start calling, How are you?
I'm fine. Apologies for being late. That's typical, but it shouldn't be me.
Right, but you know how it is. School's back. We got double traffic and, bike lanes and bus lanes and all that stuff, and speed bumps, So, that's what happens. So we have, I was just getting ready to have Renee introduce herself. So Renee, tell us a little bit about you and what you do for the Defenders and how you got started on this.
So first, thank you for having me, Priscilla. It's always awesome to be here. It started, what started was a small group of people who were in opposition of the Shattuck. And I believe I was here before talking about that. And then the Shattuck got quiet, not canceled, because it's quiet right now. And a couple of, it started off with 5 of us in opposition with the Shattuck, and I think we're up to 400 of us who signed on in opposition. And part of that, one of the things that happened was that we're fighting about the Shattuck, and then we hear there's another problem happening in Franklin Park. And then we found out that they're planning on building this thing. So through fighting with the community and fighting and trying to figure things out, the Emerald Necklace Conservancy got involved with us, and we decided to file suit. And here we are. We're getting ready to go through the appeal process, because the first couple of times that we went to court, we were basically denied what we were asking. First, we asked for a halt. I forget what it's called. Mr. Lisa, could you?
Temporary restraining order.
Thank you. A temporary restraining order. Yeah, TRO. And that was shot down. And then we went to trial, and the judge did not decide on our side. And now we're appealing that decision.
Wow.
So everything we've been doing is fighting for our community, in particular Franklin Park, because it seems like it's open court press on the one and only green space that Black and brown people have in the city, which is our park.
Right, right. Louis, I know you've been very vocal, and I know you live right across the street from Franklin Park. So, what can be done? Because I know they're in construction now. You know, so what actually can be done?
Well, first thing, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about this situation. I'm going to start with a little bit about why and how I'm here. I've been a part of Franklin Park for the last 54 years. When I moved to Boston, I moved within 2 blocks of the park, and 2 years after that, I moved across the street from Franklin Park on Seaver Street. I'm one of the founding members of the Franklin Park Coalition, the original coalition whose job and whose purpose was to improve the quality of life in the park, because it was the only park in the city of Boston. Its abutters were predominantly Black and brown people. And so it was the largest park in the city of Boston. It's 10 times the size of the Commons, but it was getting less than 2% of the resources of the city of Boston. And I assumed it was because it was in an area that was predominated by Black and brown people. And I don't think I'm wrong, because 50 years later, they're still trying to undermine the park by taking away resources. Their dislike for Black and brown people has gotten to the point they'll destroy the history, the integrity, the legacy of Frederick Law Olmsted, one of the world's greatest landscape architects, to minimize the opportunities of Black and brown people in the city as it comes to open space. So I got involved because I stayed involved, and for the last 48 years, as part of the Franklin Park Coalition and as part of Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association, the oldest Black ongoing neighborhood association in Boston, we stayed and continue to stay involved in trying to improve the park. I have about 5,000, maybe more hours of service in the park, cleaning and moving weeds and shrubberies and leaves. So when they came up to, in the beginning, when they started with the Shattuck Hospital in 2017, I was already engaged and involved. Said to them then, working out of the clubhouse and different places where they're making this presentation to take over the Shattuck. First, I brought the issue that they didn't consult us when they tore down the first building. There were 2 buildings at Shattuck. They tore down the first building. There was no consultation with the neighborhood or the community that surrounds the park. And so for the second building, the state was going to turn it over to the city. And the city decided it wanted to do something that's totally inconsistent with the needs of the people, the majority of the people who surround the park. While it sounds good for housing, they wanted to do something for recovering people and things of that nature. It did not take in considerations what the impact would be for all the residents, whether you lived in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, or Jamaica Plain. And so the state representative at the time, Liz Miranda, Liz Maya, she did not care. Liz Maya was the state representative. She did not care for the folks in the Black and brown communities, and she just went along with it. And we had to say directly, Garrison Trotter, the Franklin Park Coalition, as it has morphed into a group of entertainers, they were not concerned about it, but we were very concerned, because we know that when you have a community, with hundreds of people without regulation, then you have mass and chaos all over again. So we opposed that. In the meantime, the mayor came to us as a neighborhood association, Garrison Trotter, and said they were thinking about redoing, finally, White Stadium, a stadium that the city of Boston Parks and Public Schools had control over for the last 70 years. They decided that they wanted to fix it up after it had a fire 35 years ago. They did nothing. They let it swelter, they let it sit there in a terrible mess. Garrison Trotter and a number of neighbors came together many times to clean up in and around White Stadium and do the leaves and pick up the sand. We were never consulted. They were told they wanted to put a soccer league here, but that they were going to fix it up for the school kids, for public school sports. It's not going to happen. There is no soccer field in the world it is in the same location as a track field. It's physically not possible. So we're now trying to figure out what they plan to do, because it's not for public schools. They went 35 years, did nothing to fix up the building. And as far as I'm concerned, they presented no plan. There's no comprehensive plan for the east wing of the stadium, which is the part that's been torn down. It's not in construction, it's in demolition. They've destroyed the east wing. The wing that the Unity Soccer League wants, they have a plan for. They've got staging up around there. But the rest of the stadium is in rubble. It's in ruins, and it was done undercover without the support or consent of the community. Most importantly, the park defenders know that this white stadium is just the entryway. We consider that the Trojan horse, because they're taking land far beyond White Stadium.
Right.
They're going into the Playstead. They're going into Playstead Road. The park so-called commission is supposed to oversee the parks for the well-being of the citizens. They voted without ever seeing a plan to give away Pierpont Road and Playstead Road and Circuit Drive. They're just saying, well, we're going to let these people have what they want. This is not democracy. This is not fairness. And the impacts will be to our community. So the plan the city has proposed means that Black and brown communities cannot enjoy peaceful existence and utilization of their homes during game day, for the areas are shut down for free travel and access during game time.
I don't understand, because the White Stadium belongs to the Boston Public Schools. So how do you just decide that you're going to do all this without the community's say so, or without even really talking to the community about this? That's one reason why we need to elect the school committee, which we did not get, that we voted for. It just seems like, because I went to a couple of the meetings when they were talking about the Shattuck, the 860 rooms, beds that they wanted to put, Boston Medical put in the RFP, and they were just gonna, make these changes. And so the problem is that for some reason our mayor just feels like she just can do whatever she wants to do without no kind of backlash, and nobody should be able to say anything or do anything. And I'm really, it's just like, come on, really. So you all are back in court. You're on an appeal.
We're
right?
on appeal, yeah.
I tell you, I do want to let people know that the National Coalition Against Predatory Lending won their case against Blue Hub Capital, who Elise Cherry, who is the ED of Blue Hub Capital, is a very good friend of the governor's. She helped her fund all her campaigns and things. So there's definitely corruption at the top. Okay.
Of course.
And so how do we, as people in Boston, Black and brown people, how do we fight this? How do we say, hold up, stop? What is it that we can do besides running back and forth to court? And it looks like the judges ain't even on our side.
I think people have to get involved. I mean, if you look, and we were talking about this earlier, if you look at the amount of people that actually voted in the primaries, out of 434,000 people, only 96,000 people came out to vote.
That's embarrassing.
It is. And I mean, after those are people that are registered to vote. We must get involved. Because before we know it, we're going to look around and we're not going to be here.
Well, especially if we don't have no challenges, if we don't have nobody challenging our elected officials, no, we're not going to be here, because they're just going to do what they want to do.
I'm disappointed with how Josh Kraft handled that primary and walking away. And there's a lot of things floating around as to why. But I think you're right. If he drops out, the third person in line should be able to have that spot.
That's right.
Mr. DeRosa tried to get the signatures, tried to do these things, and I don't think he made it through. It's important for us to all get involved, and it's important for us to, as Black people and brown people in the communities that we were born and raised in, to make sure that we're saying we demand a seat at the table.
That's
and
right.
you can't have these conversations unless we're there. We're way past diplomacy at this point.
Yeah.
And it's time that we get a little bit more loud and organized, and as our community, stop speaking in silos. Right?
That's another problem. I always say we need to disrupt some stuff. I'm serious. We just, we need 1,000, 2,000 of us just need to go down to City Hall, or the State House. We need to disrupt them. We need to let them know that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and enough is enough. And this issue with our election this year, the fact that automatically Michelle Wu is going to be our next mayor. It's sad. And those of you all who did not want Michelle Wu and did not bother to go out and vote, shame on you. Shame on you.
I think there's a lot of fatigue in our community. And, we're tired. We're exhausted. The fatigue is real. We're out here. We're going to City Hall. We're having these conversations. We're being part of these discussions. It's exhausting, and I think that we have to keep pushing and fight through the exhaustion, because, like I said, if we're not careful, we're gonna lose our homes. We're gonna lose our places and spaces and communities that, as I say, Boston runs through my veins. I've been here my whole life.
I was born and raised in Boston City Hospital. Now,
me too.
Boston Medical Center.
So.
We have another guest, my friend, Miss Bermina Cherry, who got me involved in the Franklin Park Defender. She told me about what was going on. I'm like, yeah, I'll come out and help. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Hello. Oh, yeah, I tell everybody. Everybody knows, if they talk to me, they know what's going on. Because I was telling people who aren't even from Boston, because I got involved while I was at BU. So I was bringing my friends out to the meetings and everything. I was like, guys, y'all don't know what's going on in my community. Y'all are so, the colleges are so isolated from the actual community of Boston, to a point where we get isolated from what's going on in the community and how it's impacting, how our actions or inaction impacts the greater Boston community. I was like, guys, this is what's going on. I didn't even know about it, and I'm very involved, and I live here in. They were like, that's kind of crazy, and I was in an environmental justice class too, and I would talk about it all the time. I was keeping up with the the first court case. And I would talk about it in class. I literally got the notification that we didn't win while I was in class. It was so bad. So I feel like this is something that's so important, and ever since I learned about it, I've been trying to stay involved as much as possible, because it's just unconscionable to me that a stadium that is supposed to be for the kids is getting trotted out as if it's going to be renovated for them, when in reality we're getting some of the same old rhetoric, but also the same old actions that we have seen prior, and that has resulted in us losing key property and key infrastructure in Boston, particularly Black Boston.
And access, and that's the most important.
Access,
what you
yeah.
said. It's not for the children, and it's not for the students. It's not for Boston Public Schools. At first, they don't have a budget for the schools. They don't have anything in place to show that there's any continuity or process. They've torn down the east wing of the stadium, and it's been sitting there now for 3.5 months, torn down, and nothing else is moving because they still don't have the budget and resources in place. It's a violation of process for them to destroy something without having something already in place to say what was going to happen. So the Boston Public Schools, public facilities, and the Landmark Commission and the Planning Commission and the Boston Parks and Recreation, they all colluded to destroy something and take away something from the communities of color that surround that park. And they're now encroaching upon the open public space, which is not a part of the stadium. When Ellis made her decision and the other judge made his decision, neither one of them took in consideration that they're taking land beyond White Stadium. They're creating a problem for the community, that this walk plan that they have as part of their transportation so-called plan, it destroys the lives of the community. And we have to take it further. What should we do? First, we got to stop playing. You see, black folks and brown folks, they've been entertained all summer. They've been entertained with parties, and you've had more movie nights and things all in City Hall and down on the waterfront. But you can't even afford to go. It's a distraction.
That's right. That's all it is.
Literally taking our homes.
Yeah.
They're taking the ability for you to park in your neighborhood for a minimum of 20 games. A minimum of 20 games, because this soccer league using this as entertainment. So there will be other activities and programs in which they have nothing in place as to how we survive as a neighborhood. And so we got to be focused and aware. The sister said it. You can't be a part of this. I mean, people at the colleges, they're transient. They may be living here. We live here. And we've got to take this seriously. While you were dancing and boogieing around that little section of Franklin Park called the Alma Lewis area, the rest of the park was being taken away. So look at their transportation plan.
Right.
That whole area between the zoo and the place that is gone, they call it the tailgate area. Well, how are you 200 yards away from the stadium, and now you got an area that you're going to designate for tailgate? I mean, how are you going to take the space on Seaver Street in Humboldt that's been used by Berea Church for the last 35, 40 years and call it your parking lot, your drop-off lot? So where do people in Berea go? The example of their ignorance and disdain for the community was to say they had a comprehensive plan. And I asked them, well, how is your plan going to work when Berea Church uses the lot? The representative of that group told me, he says, that's going to be no problem. Our games are on Saturday. I said, sir, with all due respect,
That's when they have their church on Saturday.
7-day Adventist.
It's a 7-day Adventist church. And he says, well, what does that mean? It means you should get out of my face, because this type of ignorance with this type of money for millions of dollars that you have, you don't understand. Well, the church is over. You don't know when church is over. You don't know what they do Friday night before the church. You don't know what they do Saturday. It's a church. It's a part of the community. But it's that disdain they have for black people. We've seen it before. I don't want to talk about when we had to deal with Jesse Waters and other people they allowed to come as predators in our community. But this is no different. This is just on a major scale. It's a Trojan horse. It's not about soccer. And it's not about children in public schools. And you ask why. Boston Public Schools is run by the mayor. Some of our leaders will help remember how Ray Flynn was able to take over the Boston School Committee. And the votes didn't come out of Roxbury. They didn't come out of Dorchester, Mattapan. They came out of the state. There was a homeland petition. They had to have they had to get the whole state to say we could change from an elected school committee to a appointed school committee. But just recently we said we want it back.
Exactly.
Boston
and it was ignored.
Well,
we have a caller, I believe. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, hi, Priscilla. This is Melissa Hamill calling in. I wanted to call in and say thank you so much to Louis, Renee, and Bermina for continuing to fight for our park. And I also wanted to mention that as recently as yesterday, the Landmarks Commission held a hearing in which they did their glossy presentation about White Stadium and how patting themselves on the backs about how homesteadian it was and how they respected the park and and yet they showed pictures of a structure that was twice the size as the existing structure. And we also know that the stadium design is actually not built for the school children because there's only a very few seats inside the stadium where you can actually see the entire track. So when they say this is built for the kids and the track community and all this, and it's not true. You know, this is designed for professional viewing of a soccer pitch, not to view the track, and certainly not to have football games or any other events that would damage the pitch. So this is just the beginning. If this is built, you're going to see how restricted the Boston School children and the community will be.
And it will be too late.
It will be too late. And they were so disrespectful yesterday at this hearing. The Landmarks Commission, landmarks, right? Ethan Carr, who is a historian and wrote a beautiful book detailing the history of Franklin Park, he spoke up yesterday, and they cut him off. After 2 minutes, they cut him off unceremoniously, just like they have done with Lewis and all of us who've spoken out. It was clear that they don't want to hear us. They don't listen. Ethan made the very important distinction that the White Stadium is not historic. It is not a landmark. It is the park that is historic. It is the park that is a landmark. It is the park that needs to be protected, and they have ignored that. And also recently, Counselor Julia Mejia, God love her, she's wonderful. She held a hearing and for accountability, and Sigun Odowo was there. And when she asked direct questions about when he knew about the RFP, and when he talked, when this was all started, I'm sorry, I won't say lie because I don't want to get sued, but he spoke some very important mistruths about the timeline. And no one is calling him out or holding him accountable. I am just so sick of this. Anyway, so my question is, how can people get involved? So I would love to promote the Franklin Park Defenders and ask Louis and Renee and Bermina what they think, what are the next steps for people to help out. Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
In terms of getting involved, we're having weekly standouts every Monday, 4:30 to 6 on the corner of Walnut Ave and Seaver Street. So right up the street from where the White Stadium is on the Roxbury side. Also, we hold meetings to really give the community an idea of what an alternative plan could look like. So we're not just saying that, oh, we don't want your plan, and then not offering up anything in opposition. We're actively saying we don't want your plan, and here's a better plan, and that is less costly and actually retains the stadium for the kids. They've done the research and they've gotten to their credit, the Emerald Necklace Conservancy has gotten other organizations together and experts together to really develop a plan that is will hold true and is thorough, one that fully encapsulates what a renovated stadium would be like for the kids, and maintaining it specifically for them without the jumbotron, without the box seats and luxury
The beer
seats
garden.
and the beer garden.
Well, I think the thing is that what the Conservancy is doing is showing the community we should have options.
Right.
And this new design is just an option.
Right.
And there are other options. And we need and we deserve to have the opportunity to choose as a community of people who are here. Melissa Hamill said something very interesting, and what people don't understand about the design is that in the plan, the city came up, it says that Boston Public School only needs 1,200 seats. And the one area of their plan only has 1,200 seats available, right? But the stadium is for 11,000 seats. So who's those other seats for?
Exactly.
It ain't for us. And the seats that are set aside for Boston Public Schools and the community is right in the middle of sun glare. So when you're there in the summer, you're sitting in the middle of sun. It's not covered. You're going to get blasted with heat rays, sun, whatever. This design isn't for us. It's not, this entire thing is not for us. It is for a group of people to make money off of the backs of black and brown communities, black and brown people. Because if you look at the design, it has nothing to do with the kids. The other part of the design is, and Louis, keep me honest here, I believe that they have to move the seats back off the track whenever the kids are there. Isn't that going to do damage to the actual track? They can't even answer these questions for us. So if you look at the design and you look at the comparison between the Conservancy's second option, right? The second option actually shows how the design that they have is not just for the summer. It's summer, spring, fall, and winter. They even have events in the winter on the Conservancy's alternative plan. This isn't for us. It's truly not.
Yeah.
And to your point with mentioning the 1,200 seats, and they saying that that's designated for BPS. One of the things that they put on their website as a dig against us is the fact that the 5,000 seat stadium will not be enough for Boston Public School kids, and there needs to be 10,000 seats, but for graduations and whatnot. But if you just said that 1,200 seats is what's enough for the Boston Public School kids, why isn't 5,000?
That's what they wrote in their plan.
Exactly. So there's so many conflicting things that they're putting out, and they don't necessarily want us to call it out.
Well, I think too is that for us, we skim, right? We read the first couple of lines and then okay, we know. Versus we truly dig in, and I think we don't dig in enough.
Well, that's not for everyone. I've read all 600 pages.
I know you have.
2 or 3 times, and I will tell you as a planner, someone who came here for architectural planning and design, that I read from the beginning. That's why I told them that all their designs didn't work. But let's be clear, the Boston Public School Public Facilities has no plan. They have no design. You've seen nothing comprehensive as to the look of the stadium as it relates to track and field. You saw what might be a track, but that came from the design that was presented by the soccer league. The Boston Public School Facility Office never presented a comprehensive plan, which points to 2 things. The first thing is the illegal and unprofessional behavior of all these agencies that's supposed to represent the public interest, that the Landmarks Commission is a sham, that everyone on there should resign because they violated their fiduciary research in their trust as supposed architects and planners. They're supposed to protect the integrity of the resources of the city of Boston. They just capitulated. So did the Boston Parks. Each of these people never had a comprehensive plan and still don't as to what the school's designs is supposed to look like and what's going on in the field. They see nothing for field layout. As a person with 3 letters, I can tell you if you don't have a shot put, a high jump, a long jump, a triple jump, a pole vault, where does that go? You've not seen one plan. I defy anyone to give me a plan that shows you where that layout for the track and field. This is not about our children. This is a Trumpian, the same thing that this lady goes to Washington to complain about. Right here in Boston, we're having this Trumpian, we've got the control and we're going to overlord with you and we're going to do what we want and we're going to take your money. And I know that because I've worked 14 years with Madison Park Vocational Technical High School, which has been treated like a redheaded stepchild. And they've done nothing on behalf of building that school up. We spent 2.5 years, and almost $2 million designing and planning a new school, and they took $100 million from the development of that school and brought it over to White Stadium and told them that they would have to go to the state building authority if they needed the rest of the money to build the school that they had promised. They spent $2 million in planning. So let's be clear. We're living a microcosm of what's going on the macro level with a president who believes he can do what he wants, a mayor who gives little or no concern. And so if she can go to Charlestown 8 times to talk about what's going on in Everett, and she can't come one time to hear what the residents of Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan have to say, then obviously we're not being considered. Our vote really doesn't matter, and to a large extent, our tax money is being wasted.
I will say this much. Boston schools, there's a law. You cannot have alcohol on any Boston Public Schools property. How are they going to have a beer garden on Boston Public Schools property?
Well, there's a law. There's no drinking in public. But that this city has become an alcohol and drug infested process. That's why Mass and Cass is just an outgrowth of them making the decision to bring all the satellite methadone programs to one spot. They've created each of these problems. And then you turn around and you look at the City Hall, there's alcohol and whatever else you want on there, but they keep saying to our children, this is illegal, or they'll stop you because you have an open pack. Let's be consistent. We're looking at the micro level, what's going on in the macro level. We have a Trumpian situation that we have to correct here in Boston.
I also want to point out, because when I first got into White Stadium and understanding what this project was, it was through the environmental perspective. So I always would love to bring it back to that, because something that I find interesting is that they have an arborist, and the arborist has talked about how 80% of the trees that they're going to cut down are growing into infrastructure, or they're in poor health, or they're dead, or they're invasive. And I'm like, okay, if you have an arborist, why is it that you're so, and this arborist is coming up with like this, their review of the state of the environment in Franklin Park. Why is it that you are so opposed to having an environmental review, a state environmental review, as you're supposed to? And you've shirked that responsibility. I think that it's interesting to me, and I testified about this, that 80% of the trees that you're trying to cut down just so happen to be in the exact perimeter that you need to expand the park.
The 2 acres they're stealing.
And expand the stadium, excuse me. It's like, what are you defining as invasive? Is it the maples that grow all over Boston and aren't necessarily a big detriment to the environment in Boston? They don't think that people know about this stuff. They don't think that the community is gonna know what invasives are or what non-natives are.
They don't care. You see, we keep thinking they don't care. I came here for city and regional planning. I'm an urban fellow. I've got EPA fellowship. I served 16 years as executive officer of environmental affairs. When I say to them and say to you that a project of this nature should not have started without there being EIR, without there being action on the part of the state, the action on the part of transportation in the city to say how these buses are going to get up and down these routes that you're trying to change to one lane, that should have happened automatically. I'm not depending on the mayor who thinks that she has authority not to speak to anybody. I think the state, and I think the Secretary of State, I think that the Attorney General, I think that the Secretary of Environmental and Energy Affairs, they should do their job. They should give us back what we as citizens of the Commonwealth need. And we should get that support. I think that what we have to do is stop playing. We have to say directly, you're coming after our community, you're hurting our quality of lives, you're destroying our church, and you're taking away the only center that poor and working class people can come to. Olmsted planned this with understanding that everybody couldn't get to Cape Cod, and up to New Hampshire and down to Rhode Island, that this was a staycation. And it represents a great opportunity for our children to understand the environment. The environment, to see the trees, to see the plants, to see Scarborough Pond, which hasn't been cleaned in 30 years. These things we have to bring back because this is a taking of our quality of life.
And that's just directly to my point. The city has acted as if they care about the environmental impacts that this project will have on the broader community, and also Franklin Park and the trees and everything. The mayor came on and talked about how she's a nerd for invasive species and understanding the native environment and the fact that there are no bushes anymore because of the trees and stuff like that. Okay, so why is it that you're opposed to having an environmental review at the state level, as you're supposed to do when you are convening a project of this nature and of this caliber? So I think that it speaks to their ineptitude in that regard, and their desire to just zoom through this project as fast as they can so that they can get it up and running, and really take out community process in the process. So
why are we here? You see, you're asking question 5. Question 1 is, how did we get all these invasive species? How did the weeds grow? How did we get knockweed? They refuse to take care of the park. This place has been neglected for the last 50 years. They finally just started on the bear dens, which I watched for 52 years. They did nothing about it. They started on it. There's no communication with their budding neighbors. And we asked them, what are you doing? We're making it safe. For whom?
So I have a question. Mayor Walsh donated $28 million to Franklin Park.
No.
He didn't.
No.
It was a sale.
That was part of the deal when they sold the garage downtown, that $54 million and more that came as a part of the trade-off, land trade-off. So the portion that came as a bequeath to Franklin Park as part of a trust. And so that there's 4 people who are supposed to be a part of that trust that says how this should be used. It's not supposed to be used for maintenance. And so they kept this beautiful view plan. They spent another $1 million to get the 4th plan, as I said. I've got 48 years as Franklin Park Coalition. We started this process. The community was cleaning the park. The community was going out to knock weeds in the tree. So no, Walsh gave us nothing.
Okay, so where did the $28 million come from?
The 28 from the sale of the garage. That was,
Okay.
That was part of the trade-off. And so
So where is? I mean, did that is that $28 million in
the trust?
the trust?
It's
Okay.
supposed to be in the trust. Is being misused, and so when Ayanna Presley negotiated part of the deal for her to go along with the rest of the members of the council to sell this garage, part of the deal was she identified Franklin Park. I know the Franklin Park Coalition now says, well, we got this. No, they didn't get anything. This came from the community. This is us sitting down with Ayanna when she was in the city council and saying, we need to get something out the deal, and this was the deal. The trust was set up, and the district representative of District 7 is supposed to be one of the 4 members, I think, that's on this trust. But the money is not supposed to be misutilized as is being now.
Speaking of money,
No, they've always had money. The White Stadium has been in the Boston Public Schools budget. The question someone needs to ask our Inspector General, if we had one, is where did the money go?
Right.
See, that money has always been a part of the Boston Public Schools facilities. Where'd the money go? What happens to the resources, that should be there for the park? You got to remember, Franklin Park was neglected on purpose. Mm-hmm. They're not coming back to Franklin Park to make it work for the residents and the neighbors and the abutters. They want to make it work for this private entity that has billions of dollars, that has a goal to do something which is not expand the benefits of the park to the residents of Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan.
I find it very funny, though, that speaking of money and this $1 billion entity that is supposed to be pouring in so much money on their half to be funding this project, they didn't even have the funds by the deadline a month ago. And the deadline that the city, when they realized that the soccer team did not have the monny,
They gave them an extension.
They gave them an extension till September 15th. So
it's a consistent violation of process. I'm telling you, with 50-some years in government service, I served presidents, governors, mayors. This is inconsistent with the laws of the Commonwealth, and somebody needs to take this up. They already exposed the fact that this contract was agreed to and signed. It was a sole source contract from the beginning, that whether Igazora or anybody else wants to admit to it, people recognize the fact that this has not been done the way it's supposed to be legally. And some judge somewhere is going to ask the question, how did you have a contract? How did they get an RFP and get a response? And it's the same thing they were trying to do with Shattuck. The exact same thing. They're just trying to push it through because they think we're not paying attention. But just like you guys who woke up and awake, there's some of us stay awake. We don't get a chance to sleep, whether it's over in Ashmont Street or whether it's over in Roxbury. When they stood putting up buildings and got things going on, we want to know what's going on inside, and we stay awake for that purpose. We want to know what this is about, because it's not about soccer. It's not about my daughters. All 4 of them played soccer. 2 of them played soccer internationally. They get no benefits. You got to understand that they took away the tennis courts that were right next to White Stadium. They moved them 3/4 of a mile away, and they want to put them up in the Shattuck area, which is what we used to use for Juneteenth celebrations, and they want to put high fences around there, which takes away the whole picnic area around Shattuck. So you have fences on the left and fences on the right, which turns the Shattuck area now into a prison yard.
Unbelievable. I tell you, I'm so upset. No one's challenging Michelle Wu.
But if you look at the city, it's so funny. You look at the city and you think to yourself, 93,000 people came out to vote. You can't tell me that people aren't driving around this city every single day and is not completely disgusted at what they're seeing and experiencing. I live in Roxbury. It took me 14 minutes to get here this morning. 40 minutes. You can't tell me you didn't. So that's why I think we're just tired. People are tired. We're exhausted. And we don't think we can make a change. We have leaders in our community, but they're drowning them out. Like the caller said, like Melissa said, Lewis is getting on calls and they're silencing him. They're shutting off his video.
That's why they need to have these meetings in person. I believe we have a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sister Priscilla.
Good morning, Grace. How you doing?
Hi. I'm just calling to comment on the subject. There are those of us in the black community who support the redevelopment of Wright Stadium. For 40 years, the black community has been waiting for the redevelopment of White Stadium and to address the historical disinvestment in the black community.
So you think it's a good idea?
Of course, I was
Why?
born and raised here as a child, in black, growing up in Boston. White Stadium and Franklin Park was the only park that black people could go and not face racism. We didn't go to the Honor Arboretum. We didn't go to the Jamaica Pond or the Emerald Necklace, or feared going to the Boston Garden to face racism. So Franklin Park and White Stadium is where we went. We've had community events, concerts at White Stadium, also Elmer Lewis in the park, and people are talking about the redevelopment of White Stadium, but also what about the permanent place that they're building for the Elmer Lewis Playhouse in the park as
They're
well.
building nothing.
So these are historical disinvestments in the black community. We're in a new world now. The Boston Public Schools has, I myself ran track there. The Boston Public Schools has not kept up with the redevelopment. We've brought youth there to White Stadium, to the sports camps. You can no longer do these things. It's time for it to be redeveloped. We're living in different times now. Professional soccer sports is the number one thing now. Also the focus, another injustice to professional women players is also another focus. All the schools have girls soccer. It would be great that if you ask the youth, because it would be great that our youth can go up there and envision and see professional soccer players so they could be one. It would be great. We grew up just having to walk to Franklin Park and White Stadium to enjoy all these community events that was happening. We didn't have to go anywhere, thank God, that we had a place. So for people to talk about the racism that existed back then, when that was the only place that we can go. So this is owed to us like reparations.
That ain't no reparations.
Yeah,
No.
this is
We're not
This is not no reparations.
Do you even understand the amount of policing? Hold on. Do you even understand? Do you even understand the amount
you grew
of?
up here, but my parents, my uncles and aunts.
Grace, I grew up here too. I ran in White Stadium too, and it doesn't make any sense. You're gonna put a beer garden. You're gonna displace. Stop now, because this doesn't make any sense to me.
Can we get off, please? Can I say something? And I may get some heat for this. To me, the way you just came off, Grace. This is this mentality that we have in the black community that everything that they're doing is for us. It is not for us. Understand this. Do you understand the amount of policing that is going to happen in this park? People who do not understand black people and or black communities. We are going to police. They're going to police this park heavily. When you talk about the amount of white people that are coming into our park, we are going to look like the criminals in the park. Girl, bye. Like, I cannot. Grace sounds like the same woman who was in a meeting screaming, Michelle Wu is also Mama Wu. Please, 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 please. You know what? I'm a little too passionate. I'm going to let y'all handle it.
The thing is, what Grace is saying, it's not necessarily different from what we're saying. We didn't say that the White Stadium should not be reinvested in. It should not be redeveloped. We did not say that it has been historically that it has not been historically disinvested in. What you're saying is not different from what we're saying. And also, I see a lot of the same rhetoric that the city of Boston and the mayor's office has been purporting or propelling against us and saying about us that we ourselves don't want White Stadium to be redeveloped. We don't want White Stadium to be renovated. the one thing that we all agree upon is
It
that
needs
White
to be
Stadium
done, yes.
needs to be renovated. But what we disagree upon is about how that's been going about and what the process has been in order to do that. And for you to invite a private entity into that equation and still say that the stadium is for the kids when it's really in favor of the private stadium, the structure of the stadium is really in favor of how the private soccer team is going to be having their games run.
The revenue that's going to be.
There is no revenue. If you even understand banking, I was in the banking industry for 20 years. I did commercial loans. Do you understand the cost associated with the money that they're borrowing against? There's a debt service. It's more than $500,000, which is what they're paying. You don't understand. We are going to be in a deficit.
They don't understand. You see, I think we're wasting our time with people who get talking points, who have nothing else to do but read stuff. They got sons and nieces and daughters that work for the mayor. They don't do anything in Franklin Park. I've been there 50-some years, and they never came and picked up a twig or a leaf or did anything to improve the park. If they couldn't go out to the beaches, or they couldn't go to Laviscon or any other parks, they never came to Franklin Park to do anything. They're dancing, and they're in the area, but they will not redo Elmer Lewis State Playhouse in the park. They will not have space for your kids because their plan takes away the place that if we weren't ignorant and that we believed everything they told us. These are the kind of people who gratefully walk back into slavery.